Jessica Martinez, 30, standing at the entrance of the Grand Meridian Hotel, watching my younger sister Victoria's engagement party through the glass doors. My hands trembling as I clutch a leather briefcase containing documents that would shatter their perfect world. 8 years of silence, 8 years of building my own life, and now I'm back with the power to expose everything. If you've ever felt abandoned by the people who should have loved you unconditionally, this story is for you. Family betrayal cuts deeper than any other wound, but sometimes justice requires patience. I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments. If my journey resonates with you, please subscribe for more stories about family karma and the long road to justice. Let me take you back to where it all began, to the prestigious neighborhood of Palo Alto, California, where appearances meant everything and secrets lurked behind every perfectly manicured lawn. I grew up in a sprawling Mediterranean-style mansion with infinity pools, tennis courts, and a view of the Santa Cruz Mountains. My father, David Martinez, was a prominent tech executive at one of Silicon Valley's biggest firms. My mother, Margaret, was a former model-turned-socialite who organized charity galas and country club events with military precision. Victoria was born when I was 4, and from my earliest memories, I adored my little sister. I would read her bedtime stories about princesses and dragons, teach her to ride her pink bicycle, and fiercely protect her from the mean kids at Hillcrest Academy. We shared secrets in our elaborate playhouse and made pinky promises about being each other's maid of honor someday. When thunderstorms scared her at night, she would crawl into my bed, and I would hold her until she fell asleep. "Jessie," she would whisper, using her special nickname for me, "promise we'll always be sisters no matter what happens." "I promise, Vicky," I would reply, stroking her golden hair. Nothing could ever come between us. But beneath our picture-perfect family facade lurked corruption that we weren't supposed to acknowledge. My father's late nights at the office weren't always about important meetings. I discovered this at 15 when I overheard him on a conference call, discussing stock trades based on insider information he had accessed through his position at the company. When I confronted him about what I had heard, his reaction was swift and terrifying. He grabbed my wrist so hard it left bruises and spoke in a voice I had never heard before. "You will never repeat what you think you heard," he hissed, his eyes cold and calculating. "This is business that doesn't concern children. If you ever mention this to anyone, especially your mother, there will be consequences you can't imagine." My mother wasn't oblivious to the family's dark undercurrents. She medicated her knowledge with prescription pills and expensive wine, often disappearing into her private sitting room for hours. By afternoon most days, her speech would become slightly slurred, her movements too careful. I would find her passed out on her chaise lounge, always with the excuse of just resting, when questioned at dinner. As we entered our teenage years, Victoria and I responded to our toxic home environment in completely opposite ways. I became rebellious, questioning authority, dyeing my naturally blonde hair black, staying out past curfew, and challenging my father's hypocritical lectures about integrity and hard work. Victoria doubled down on perfection, straight A's, student council president, volunteer work that looked impressive on college applications, and a carefully curated social media presence that showcased our family's wealth and status. "Why do you have to make everything so difficult?" Victoria would ask me after I'd had another screaming match with our father. "Just play along and life is easier for everyone. Because it's all built on lies," I would respond. "Don't you see how messed up this family really is?" But Victoria didn't want to see. She thrived on our father's approval, basking in his praise while I received nothing but criticism. In public, he would introduce her as my brilliant daughter, while I became, "And this is Jessica." The difference was subtle, but devastating. The beginning of the end came during my 18th birthday party. My father had arranged an elaborate celebration at the country club, not because I wanted it, but because it was expected for a Martinez family milestone. During the dinner, I noticed him speaking quietly with Robert Chen, a board member from a competing tech company, their conversation clearly about confidential business matters. Later, I saw them in my father's office at the club, exchanging what looked like documents and a thick envelope. Something inside me snapped. I returned to the private dining room where 40 guests, family friends, relatives, and my parents' business associates were enjoying dessert and champagne. I grabbed a knife and clinked my glass, standing up with determination I didn't know I possessed. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate my birthday," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'd like to propose a toast to my father, who works so incredibly hard at everything he does, his executive position, our family's reputation, and his lucrative side business of selling company secrets to competitors." The room went silent. My mother's face drained of color. Victoria looked mortified. My father's expression shifted from shock to pure rage in seconds. "Jessica is clearly intoxicated," he announced smoothly, standing up and forcing a laugh. "Teenagers and champagne don't mix well. Perhaps it's time we wrap up the evening." Within 30 minutes, the guests had been ushered out with apologies and expensive gift bags. Back at home, my father's composure completely shattered. "You ungrateful little brat," he roared, pacing our marble-floored kitchen. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The people in that room are colleagues, investors, business partners. Your childish tantrum could destroy everything I've built." "Good," I shot back. "Let them see what kind of man you really are." "What kind of man I really am?" He laughed without humor. "I'm the man who gave you everything. This house, your education, your designer clothes, your car. And you've given nothing but embarrassment in return." My mother sat at the kitchen island, staring blankly at her wine glass, her pill bottle visible beside her purse. Victoria stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "Jessie, how could you?" she whispered. "You've ruined everything. Dad's reputation, our family's standing in the community. Why do you always have to destroy what's good?" That's when I realized I was completely alone in that house full of people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. "I want you out," my father said, his voice suddenly calm and deadly. "You have a choice. Keep your mouth shut about family business, apologize to everyone who matters, and follow the rules of this house. Or leave tonight and never come back." I looked at my mother, silently pleading for support. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I looked at Victoria. "Vicky, you know I'm telling the truth about what I saw." She shook her head, fresh tears falling. "You're being selfish and dramatic. You always need to be the center of attention, even if it hurts everyone who loves you." Her words cut deeper than my father's rage ever could. "Fine," I said, my voice breaking. "I'll leave." I packed a single suitcase with clothes, toiletries, and a few precious photos of Victoria and me from happier times. My father watched from the doorway of my bedroom, arms crossed, satisfaction evident in his posture. "Your credit cards have been canceled," he informed me coldly. "Your car is in my name, so the keys stay here." He handed me $800 in cash. "This is more generous than you deserve. Don't contact us. Don't come back. And don't use our name to gain sympathy from anyone. As far as this family is concerned, you're dead to us now." I walked out the front door on a cold February night, 18 years old with $800 and a suitcase. No one came after me. No one called my name. The sound of the door closing behind me was the last sound I heard from my childhood home. The first year was brutal. I slept in youth hostels when I could afford them, occasionally on friends' couches until their families became uncomfortable with the arrangement. I worked multiple minimum wage jobs, cashier at a convenience store, server at a diner, cleaning offices at night. I showered at a gym where I traded cleaning services for membership. I learned which coffee shops would let you sit for hours if you bought one small drink. Not once did I receive a call, text, or email from my family. It was as if Jessica Martinez had truly died on her 18th birthday. Rock bottom came 8 months after leaving home. I was fired from my server job after collapsing from exhaustion during a busy dinner rush. That night, sitting on a bench in Golden Gate Park with my few possessions, I made a promise to myself. I would not only survive, I would succeed beyond their wildest imagination. And someday, I would make my father regret throwing me away. The next morning, I walked into San Francisco City College and spoke with a financial aid counselor. With my excellent high school transcripts, I qualified for several need-based scholarships and government grants. I found a tiny studio apartment in a rough neighborhood and took on 3 jobs: morning barista, afternoon tutor, and weekend catering assistant. My schedule was exhausting. Classes from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., work until midnight, study until 3 a.m., sleep for 4 hours, repeat. I lived on ramen noodles and day-old pastries from the coffee shop. I wore thrift store clothes and cut my own hair. But for the first time in my life, I was living authentically, without the suffocating pressure of family expectations and their dirty money. During my second semester, I took an Introduction to Business Law course taught by Professor Elena Rodriguez. She was everything I aspired to be: brilliant, composed, successful, and commanding respect through competence rather than intimidation. After I earned the highest grade on our first major exam, she asked me to stay after class. "You have exceptional analytical skills, Jessica," she said, studying me over her reading glasses. "But you look exhausted. Is everything okay at home?" Something about her genuine concern broke through the walls I had carefully constructed. Before I knew it, I was telling her everything: my family, the ultimatum, my current struggles. Instead of pity, her eyes showed understanding and determination. "I was homeless for a year in my 20s, she revealed. My path wasn't traditional either. But look at me now: tenured professor, published researcher, consultant for major corporations. Professor Rodriguez became more than a mentor. She became the mother figure I desperately needed. She helped me apply for additional scholarships, occasionally invited me for home-cooked meals, and most importantly, believed in me when I struggled to believe in myself. "You have fire in you," she would say. "That's rare and valuable. Channel it into your education and your future." With her guidance, I graduated with honors and a business degree that opened doors to internships at accounting firms. When acceptance letters for graduate programs arrived, including one from Stanford's Business School with a partial scholarship, Professor Rodriguez helped me navigate the financial aid process and even co-signed a student loan. "Pay it forward someday," was all she asked. Business school was both harder and easier than community college. Harder intellectually, but easier because I had stable housing, better nutrition, and Professor Rodriguez checking in regularly. I threw myself into my studies, particularly excelling in corporate finance and forensic accounting. The complexities of financial fraud, insider trading, and corporate corruption captivated me, probably because I had lived with it firsthand. After graduation, I accepted a position at Morrison & Associates, a prestigious accounting firm in San Francisco specializing in forensic accounting and corporate investigations. I started at the bottom like every new hire: 80-hour weeks, mind-numbing audit work, and coffee runs for partners. But I worked harder than anyone else, volunteered for the most challenging cases, and stayed latest at the office. By my 6th year, I had been promoted to senior manager, the youngest in the firm's history. I had a sleek apartment in Soma, a wardrobe of tailored suits, and the respect of colleagues who had no idea about my background. I had transformed from a homeless teenager to a successful forensic accountant specializing in corporate fraud investigations. The scared, rejected girl was gone, replaced by a confident woman who controlled her own destiny and had the skills to expose financial crimes. Then came the case that would change everything. "Jessica, we need you to lead the Technova investigation," said senior partner Patricia Morrison, dropping a thick file on my desk. "Potential securities fraud, insider trading, manipulation of earnings reports. Right up your alley." I nodded, already flipping through the file. "Who's the primary target?" Chief Technology Officer David Martinez. Built their cloud computing division into one of the most profitable in Silicon Valley. But the SEC thinks he's been trading on inside information and manipulating financial reports to inflate stock prices. The file slipped from my hands, papers scattering across my office floor. My father's professional headshot stared up at me from the documents, older now, more distinguished, but unmistakably the man who had thrown me out 8 years ago. "Are you all right?" Patricia asked, helping me gather the documents. "Fine," I managed. "Just surprised. I've heard of him." His reputation in the industry. Well, that reputation might be built on fraud. The trading patterns don't lie. He's been making suspiciously timed trades ahead of major announcements, and their earnings reports show irregularities that suggest manipulation. That night, I stared at my father's corporate biography in the case file. 8 years older, more successful, now estimated to be worth over $50 million. According to the file, he had expanded his influence, joined additional boards, and purchased properties in Napa Valley and Aspen. His wealth had tripled since I left, all potentially built on securities fraud and market manipulation. My first instinct was to recuse myself due to conflict of interest, but a deeper, darker thought emerged. Who better to investigate David Martinez than the daughter he had discarded? I knew his patterns, his arrogance, his belief that he was untouchable. I understood how he thought and operated. For 7 months, I led the investigation while keeping my connection secret. I interviewed former employees, current colleagues, financial analysts who had worked with Technova. I combed through thousands of financial documents, trading records, and internal communications. I traced money through shell companies and offshore accounts. I analyzed the timing of his stock transactions against internal company announcements and board meetings. The evidence was devastating. My father had built much of his recent wealth through insider trading, making strategic stock purchases and sales based on confidential information about mergers, earnings reports, and major contracts. He had manipulated quarterly reports to artificially inflate stock prices before selling his shares. He had used his position to funnel contracts to companies he secretly owned through shell corporations. Worst of all, several pension funds and individual investors had lost millions because of his manipulations, including retirement accounts of Technova's own employees. As I assembled the final case file, an elegant silver envelope arrived at my office. Inside was an invitation to Victoria's engagement party and wedding to Christopher Blackwood, son of Senator Robert Blackwood. The wedding would take place at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco, one of the most prestigious venues in the city. Attached was a handwritten note in Victoria's familiar script. "Jesse, I know we haven't spoken in 8 years, but I want my sister at my wedding. Please come. I've missed you more than you know. Love, Vicky." I stared at the invitation for hours, wondering how they had found me and what agenda might be behind this sudden outreach. Was it genuine reconciliation? A political calculation by the Blackwoods to ensure no family skeletons remained hidden? Or something more calculated? Whatever the reason, the timing was extraordinary. Just as I completed an investigation that could destroy my father's career and send him to federal prison, a doorway to my past swung open. The wedding invitation sat on my kitchen counter for 5 days. Each morning I would stare at it while drinking my coffee, remembering Victoria's face when she called me selfish and dramatic. Remembering my father's cold eyes when he told me I was dead to them. Remembering my mother's silence and the pills that helped her escape reality.
How had they found me?
I had been careful to keep my professional and personal lives separate, using my middle initial professionally rather than exposing my connection to the Martinez family. My address was unlisted, my social media minimal and private. On the 6th day, I called Professor Rodriguez. "Elena, I need your advice," I said when she answered. "Something complicated has come up with my family." We met for dinner at a quiet restaurant in the Mission District, where I showed her the invitation and explained the ongoing investigation. "This is quite the ethical dilemma," she said, studying the invitation carefully. "Professionally speaking, you should have recused yourself from the investigation the moment you recognized your father's name." I nodded, shame washing over me. "I know. However," she continued, "the investigation is now complete, and the evidence would have been discovered regardless of who led it. The question now is what to do about this wedding. Why would they invite me after 8 years of complete silence?" Elena took a thoughtful sip of wine. "Several possibilities. Your sister might genuinely miss you and want reconciliation. Your father might be attempting damage control if he suspects an investigation. Or the Blackwood family might be performing due diligence on their future in-law's family history." That night, memories flooded back as I tried to sleep. Victoria and I building sandcastles at Half Moon Bay. My father teaching me to drive in the country club parking lot. My mother braiding my hair before school dances, humming softly. These happy memories existed alongside the painful ones, creating a confusing tapestry of love and betrayal. I dreamed of walking into the engagement party, my father's face contorting in shock, my mother dropping her champagne glass, Victoria's makeup streaking with tears. I woke up sweating, heart pounding. For another week, I debated my options. Ignore the invitation and continue with the fraud case anonymously. Accept the invitation and attempt reconciliation while keeping the investigation secret. Or the nuclear option, attend the wedding and expose everything publicly. I scheduled an appointment with my therapist, Dr. Kim, who had helped me process my family trauma over the years. What do you hope to achieve by attending? She asked. Closure. I answered automatically, then paused. No, that's not entirely true. Part of me wants justice. Part of me wants them to see who I've become without their money or support. And yes, a small part wants revenge. Those are human feelings, Jessica. The question is whether acting on them will bring you peace or more pain. After another sleepless night, I made my decision. I would attend the engagement party and wedding, but not for reconciliation. I would go for truth, to finally break the cycle of secrets and lies that had defined my family. I would bring the evidence file, but make my final decision about exposing it based on how the reunion unfolded. I called SEC investigator agent Michael Thompson, with whom I'd worked on previous securities fraud cases. I need to discuss the Martinez investigation, I said when we met at the federal building downtown. There's a conflict of interest I haven't disclosed. I told him everything, my relationship to David Martinez, my reasons for not recusing myself, and the wedding invitation. Agent Thompson's expression remained professional, but I could see disappointment in his eyes. This could compromise the entire case, Ms. Martinez. Defense attorneys will argue prosecutorial misconduct and personal vendetta. The evidence stands on its own, I insisted. Every document is authenticated, every financial record verified independently. My connection doesn't change the facts. After a lengthy discussion, we reached an agreement. The SEC would continue building their case independently of my work. I would attend the wedding as Jessica Martinez without any law enforcement involvement. If I chose to present my evidence to my family privately, that was my personal decision. But any public accusation could potentially compromise the federal case. We're probably 3 weeks from having enough for formal charges, Agent Thompson said as I left. Whatever you decide to do at this wedding, remember that justice will come either way. With my decision made, I began preparations. I purchased an elegant navy dress from Nordstrom, sophisticated enough to signal success, but not flashy enough to draw unwanted attention. I made appointments for hair, nails, and makeup at the best salon in the city. I reserved a suite at the Fairmont Hotel, walking distance from the St. Francis. I created a contingency plan, sharing my itinerary with both Elena and my assistant Marcus. If you don't hear from me by Sunday evening, call this number, I told them, providing Agent Thompson's contact information. The night before leaving for the engagement party, I sat in my apartment surrounded by case files and old photographs I had kept hidden in a box for 8 years. I packed the key evidence in a slim leather portfolio, enough to prove my father's crimes without compromising the full SEC case. As I zipped my suitcase, my phone rang. An unknown San Francisco number. Hello. I answered cautiously. Jesse? It's Victoria. My sister's voice, more mature but instantly recognizable, sent a jolt through me. I just wanted to make sure you received the invitation, she continued when I didn't respond immediately. And to say that I really, really hope you'll come. I'll be there, I said, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. Really? That's wonderful. She sounded genuinely pleased, though I detected nervousness underneath. There's so much I want to talk to you about. So much I need to explain. We'll have plenty to discuss, I replied, thinking of the documents in my briefcase. Yes, we will, she paused. Jesse, thank you for giving us another chance. After we hung up, I sat motionless, tears streaming down my face. For the first time since making this decision, I questioned whether I was about to make a terrible mistake. The next evening was the engagement party. I arrived at the St. Francis Hotel precisely 30 minutes after the start time, wanting to make an entrance, but not appear desperate for attention. The ballroom was elegant, filled with San Francisco's elite, tech executives, politicians, society figures, people who moved in the same circles as my family. I checked in at the reception table under the name Jessica Martinez. The young woman's eyes widened slightly when she saw my name. "Oh, Ms. Martinez, you're on the VIP list. The bride left specific instructions that you were to be brought to her immediately when you arrived." "That's not necessary," I said quickly. "I'll find her when the time is right." I accepted a glass of champagne and moved through the crowd, observing without being noticed. The Blackwood family was impressive, Senator Robert Blackwood and his wife Helen commanding attention, their son Christopher handsome and attentive to Victoria. My parents stood near the windows overlooking Union Square, my father distinguished in his tailored tuxedo, my mother elegant but noticeably thinner, her movements more careful than I remembered. Victoria looked stunning in a champagne-colored cocktail dress, her blonde hair styled in an elegant updo, diamond earrings catching the light. At 26, she had grown from a pretty girl into a beautiful woman, poised and confident as she moved through the crowd accepting congratulations. "Jessica? Jessica Martinez." I turned to see my mother's sister, Aunt Carmen, staring at me in disbelief. "It really is you," she said, embracing me awkwardly. "My goodness, you look so grown up. Successful." "8 years will do that," I replied, forcing a smile. "Yes, well." She seemed unsure how to continue. "Such a difficult time. Your poor parents were devastated when you left. But families heal, don't they? Water under the bridge." "Some bridges can't be rebuilt," I said quietly. Before she could respond, she was called away by her husband. As she left, I overheard her whisper to another guest, "That's the daughter who ran away. The troubled one who caused all that drama." The troubled one. The label stung, reinforcing that the family narrative had painted me as unstable rather than truth-telling. I slipped away to the ladies' room, needing a moment to collect myself. Inside the hotel's marble-appointed restroom, I splashed cold water on my wrists, a calming technique Elena had taught me. The door opened, and in the mirror I saw my mother enter. Margaret Martinez froze when she recognized me, her hand still on the door handle. She had aged more than I expected, thinner, more fragile, her once vibrant auburn hair now silver, her skin showing the effects of years of prescription medication. For a moment, shock registered openly on her face. Then, like putting on a mask, she composed herself into the perfect society matron. "Jessica," she said carefully, approaching as if I might bolt. "Victoria said you might come. She'll be so happy." "Will she?" I turned to face her directly. "Or is my invitation just another Martinez family performance? Invite the estranged daughter, so no one asks uncomfortable questions about family unity." "That's not fair, darling," she said, glancing toward the door and lowering her voice. "I know things ended badly, but this is your sister's engagement party. Let's not make a scene." "Don't make a scene." The familiar refrain of my childhood. "Don't embarrass the family. Keep secrets. Maintain appearances." "I'm not planning to make a scene, Mother." I kept my voice level. "I'm just here because Victoria asked me to be." She nodded, seemingly relieved. "You look well. Very successful." Her eyes traveled over my designer dress, professional hairstyle, the confidence in my posture. "What are you doing these days?" "I'm a forensic accountant," I said, watching her face carefully. "I specialize in investigating corporate fraud and securities violations." A flicker of something, fear, crossed her eyes before she recovered. "How interesting. Your father will be surprised to see you." "I'm counting on it," I replied, my tone making her flinch slightly. A woman entered the restroom, giving my mother an excuse to retreat. "We'll talk more later," she said, squeezing my arm before hurrying out. The encounter left me shaken. I had expected anger or coldness from my mother, not this strange blend of politeness and underlying fear. She looked unwell beyond normal aging. Something in her movements suggested ongoing health issues. Following an impulse, I made my way through the crowd toward Victoria. She was speaking with Christopher and his parents near the windows, laughing at something Senator Blackwood had said. When she saw me approaching, she froze mid-laugh, her champagne glass suspended halfway to her lips. "Jessie," she whispered. "You really came." The Blackwoods, sensing the family moment, made polite excuses and stepped away, leaving Victoria and me alone for the first time in 8 years. Victoria looked beautiful, but up close I could see the careful makeup concealing stress lines around her eyes. At 26, she had maintained her girlish beauty, but gained an adult poise that suited her. "I almost didn't," I admitted. She set down her glass and approached me slowly, as if I might disappear. "I wouldn't have blamed you. After everything that happened, after the way we treated you." "Why did you invite me, Victoria?" After 8 years of silence. She gestured toward a quieter corner of the ballroom, carefully navigating through guests who were trying not to stare at our reunion. "I tried to find you," she said once we had relative privacy. "The first 2 years, I hired a private investigator with money I saved from my allowance. Dad found out and threatened to cut off my college funding." I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "You never called, never emailed." "I sent letters to your old friends' addresses, to the coffee shop where you used to work. When those were returned, I tried through social media, but you disappeared completely." I shook my head. "I cut all ties to my old life." "I figured that out eventually," she said, twisting her engagement ring nervously. "The truth is, I'm marrying into a political family. Christopher and we want to start our marriage with honesty. Having this estrangement hanging over us felt wrong." "So this is about the Blackwoods image," I said, not trying to hide my disappointment. "No." Her eyes flashed with genuine hurt. "It's about me wanting my sister back before I start this new chapter. It's about regretting how I treated you when we were teenagers. It's about healing our family before." She trailed off. "Before what?" Victoria hesitated, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "Mom's sick. Has been for 2 years. Cancer. The treatments aren't working as well as they hoped." The news hit me harder than expected. Despite everything, this was the woman who had once sung me to sleep, who taught me to bake cookies, who had moments of maternal warmth between her medicated withdrawals. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, meaning it. "How bad is it?" "Stage 3. Maybe 6 months to a year." She wanted to make it to my wedding. Victoria studied my face. "You really didn't know? You haven't been monitoring the family at all?" "I've been busy building a life without you," I said, the words coming out sharper than intended. Christopher approached, placing a protective hand on Victoria's arm. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" "Christopher, this is my sister Jessica," Victoria said, pride evident in her voice. "Jessie, this is my fiancé, Christopher Blackwood." Christopher extended his hand with genuine warmth. "Victoria talks about you constantly. I'm so glad you decided to come." He seemed sincere, which surprised me. "Congratulations on your engagement," I said. "Thank you." Victoria's been planning this wedding for months, but she always said it wouldn't be complete without her sister there. A waiter approached with champagne. "Would you like a refill, Ms. Martinez?" I accepted the glass, and Christopher raised his own. "To family reunions and new beginnings." We toasted, but I caught my father watching us from across the room, his expression unreadable. When our eyes met, he excused himself from his conversation and began walking toward us. "I should go mingle," I said quickly, not ready for that confrontation yet. "Wait," Victoria grabbed my arm. "Will you come to the wedding? It's next month. Please say yes." "I'll think about it," I said, then impulsively added, "I've missed you too, Vicky." Her eyes filled with tears. "I've missed you so much." I slipped away before my father reached us, moving through the crowd toward the bar. But he intercepted me near the entrance to the terrace. "Jessica," he said, his voice controlled but tense. "What are you doing here?" "I was invited," I replied evenly. "By Victoria." Without consulting me.
His jaw tightened.
This is a family event. I am family, aren't I? Or did you officially disown me 8 years ago? He glanced around, noting nearby guests who were trying not to stare at our tense exchange. We should discuss this privately. Nothing to discuss, I said. I'm here for Victoria's engagement party. Tomorrow I'll go back to my life. Why now? He demanded in a harsh whisper. After all this time, why show up now? Maybe I miss my family, I suggested, my tone making it clear I didn't. Or maybe I was curious about the man Victoria is marrying. The Blackwoods are quite the political dynasty. At the mention of the Blackwoods, my father's expression changed subtly. Fear flickered in his eyes before he masked it. Whatever game you're playing, don't. This engagement is important for connections that go far beyond our family. Connections, I repeated. Always the businessman. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. You were always jealous of Victoria's success, her ability to make good choices. Don't ruin this for her, because you're bitter about your own failures. My failures. I laughed quietly. I'm quite successful, actually. Forensic accounting. Corporate fraud investigations. I specialize in exposing financial crimes. The color drained from his face. For a moment, his carefully constructed composure cracked, revealing the fear underneath. That's an interesting career choice, he managed. I find it very rewarding, I said, watching him closely. There's something satisfying about bringing justice to people who think they're above the law. Before he could respond, Senator Blackwood approached us, extending his hand to me with practiced political charm. You must be Jessica. Victoria speaks of you so fondly. I'm Robert Blackwood, Christopher's father. I shook his hand, noting my father's relief at the interruption. Senator Blackwood, it's an honor. The honor is mine. Victoria tells me you work in finance? Fascinating field. Forensic accounting, specifically. I investigate corporate fraud and securities violations. Important work, the senator said approvingly. Protecting investors and maintaining market integrity. That's exactly how I see it, I replied, looking directly at my father. No one should be above the law, regardless of their position or connections. My father excused himself abruptly, claiming he needed to check on something with the catering staff. Senator Blackwood watched him go, with slight confusion. Busy man, your father. Christopher admires his business acumen tremendously. He's certainly built quite an empire, I said carefully. The rest of the evening passed without major incident. I spoke with distant relatives who remembered me as a child, received congratulations on my apparent success, and deflected questions about my 8-year absence with vague references to finding my own path. Victoria found me as the party was winding down. Are you staying in the city tonight? At the Fairmont, I confirmed. Can we have breakfast tomorrow? Just the two of us? There's so much I want to tell you, so much I need to explain. I'd like that, I said, meaning it. She hugged me tightly. I'm so glad you came, Jessie. I know Dad was upset, but I don't care. Having you here feels right. That night in my hotel suite, I reviewed the evidence file one more time. Financial records showing suspicious trading patterns. Internal emails discussing confidential information. Bank records tracing proceeds through shell companies. Testimony from witnesses who had been pressured to falsify reports. Everything needed to destroy David Martinez's career and send him to federal prison. But seeing Victoria's genuine happiness, learning about my mother's illness, witnessing my father's fear when I mentioned my career, it all complicated my desire for simple revenge. The next morning, Victoria and I met at a quiet cafe in Pacific Heights. She looked tired but determined, wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of the designer clothes I remembered from her teens. You look different, I observed. More yourself, somehow. I feel different, she admitted.